There are those schooled in the dark arts who, it is said, can commune with lost souls. But how far can we trust in their sorcery? Tonight, we enter that fearful realm between life and death to unveil the secrets of spectral communication and to determine which morbid practice can best be relied upon to reach the disembodied spirits of our loved ones. Come with us, if you dare, to discover the 10 best ways to contact the dead. In the remotest corner of South Carolina, far away from the shopping malls and drive-in restaurants, it is still possible to hear the primeval rhythms of the jungle. But only when we leave the USA and enter the kingdom of Yoruba. Here we can still find primitive forms of spirit worship such as animal sacrifice, for this is the land of voodoo worship, where Mambo priestesses and voodoo doctors commune with the dead, and where the dead walk the earth as zombies. Here we meet voodoo chief Ajamu, who says he's in regular contact with the deceased, in this case, his revered ancestor, the voodoo chief Awolowo.
I'm in contact with him all the time. Matter of fact, I'm in contact with him right now.
The idea of a zombie might seem odd to us, but not to Chief Ajamu.
With proper medicine, incantations, call it magic if you want. There's more than a belief, it is a fact that certain people that are technicians in this craft can make a person who has been pronounced dead with certain medicines, rituals, and ceremonies, make that physical frame get up and operate again.
The mesmeric music, the insistent beat of the drums and the sensual gyrations of these voluptuous dancers transport us back to the heart of the African jungle. The hypnotic rhythms drive on relentlessly, sending the voodoo worshippers into a trance-like state where they believe the spirits or lower of their dead ancestors will enter their bodies. Yet for all this, they fear the return of the zombies. It is curious that even now, in the industrial age, zombies feature so prominently in our nightmares, as if no amount of technology can defend us from the undead, as if somewhere in our hearts we know that it is wrong to disturb the long sleep of our dear dead loved ones.
Polka, in memory of the great love that once existed between us, stop all this death and destruction. Take these objects that are yours to guard and go back to the grave of our ancestors, where we should never have interrupted your eternal sleep.
They're called the Walking Dead. I do not think that these zombies have all the faculties of a human being that has everything intact. For instance, like the 9 souls, the breath of life, and all that kind of thing.
Contacting the dead with voodoo does have its attractions. It involves a great big party where big girls take off their bras and jiggle about. But bringing our loved ones back in the form of deranged zombies is less appealing. What's more, according to some scientists, it doesn't work.
What we're looking at here is something which is a figment of the imagination. It's kind of scary to think there are zombies around, people that are halfway between the living and the dead.
Richard Wiseman started out as a professional magician. Then he became a professor of psychology. Here in his observation laboratory, he has conducted many experiments into the so-called paranormal.
No one's ever caught a zombie. No one's ever interviewed a zombie. Nobody's spent quality time with one. So there really isn't any evidence that zombies actually exist.
I don't think it's any more hard to believe when they say that this figure, Jesus Christ, healed the sick and he raised the dead and everybody accepted. He told Lazarus, "Get up from the grave."
The remote Scottish fishing village of Dunoon seems so blissfully isolated. Who would suspect that this sleepy little town has been visited by some of the greatest figures in world history? And yet everyone, from the Queen Mother to Napoleon Bonaparte, are said to have visited Dunoon. And the funny thing is, they all come here, to the Ardfur Lane Country Hotel. But if the hotel has so far managed to escape the attention of the world's media, it is because its VIP guests all adopt the outward form of Bill McCaffrey. Bill is the hotel proprietor and was the first person in Scotland to host paranormal weekends.
Well, the idea of these weekends to show them that there was a base to start from. A base not to be sucked in by phony mediums. What to look for. Was it true? Did it exist? Was there a paranormal?
Bill practices something called transfiguration, in which the spirits of the dead are said to reveal themselves in his facial features. And tonight, he has invited his partner, two of their friends, and our television crew to witness one of these strange transformations.
This woman who was a medium used to stand up and go, "Oh, I am from the planet Uranus. Don't you know you are ruining the planet? Don't you know?" And then the other little lady would come in the door and she was like that. She was all bent and buckled, unfortunately, and she had a plate of sandwiches and she'd go around, "Ham and cheese, ham and cheese. Would you like ham and cheese?" And as you passed the medium who was in trance, you'd go, "Ham."
Like the pendulous Mambo priestesses, Bill is sending himself into a trance-like state. And while he is there, he says, the spirits of the dead will take over and transfigure him. And sure enough, as they stare at his features, as they gaze into his face, the friends and relations who are present begin to see not Bill's face, they say, but the faces of those who have passed from this life.
What were you seeing, Jenny?
Well, I'm getting the person with the skull cap.
It looks similar to like Julius Caesar. I would have said the head. The hair's back and there's almost like almost like a wee crown or something was on top. And then it sort of transcended into what looked like a skull cap.
Bill has less luck with the crew.
Steve?
Nothing really. I mean, when I look at you, and I look at you for a long period of time, the lines of your face change anyway because my eyes are fixed in the position.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Don't analyze it. Don't try to see anything. Just let go. Okay, well, let's try again and just see what we get. Okay? Right.
Once again, Bill sinks into his spectral trance, and once again the assembled company managed to spot a big name from the past.
It sounds crazy, but it was like Abraham Lincoln.
I just saw the hair changing slightly further back, a wee bit dark areas, but the face was definitely, yeah, Abraham Lincoln seems to make sense.
now on the camera, when we're looking through the camera,
Yeah.
all I see is Bill.
Yeah.
Now, you've unsuccessfully tried to film this before.
Yes.
Is there something lost in the translation?
It's just the different vibrations, you see. But with me, it would seem that my vibrations rise and that spirit's lower. And then people are able to see it for some reason, we don't know why. But cameras don't seem to pick it up. They just get a blur. Are you getting the blur on yours?
Although our camera was unable to spot any of Bill's dead celebrity friends, some alleged transfigurations have been captured on film, like this one in the 1980s, involving not a figure from world history, but something altogether less human.
We are Katuba. Welcome, dear friends. It is our great delight and pleasure to be able to share this time and this space with you in this part of the world that we share together. You, dear friends, within human form, we within dolphin form.
Sadly, as a method of contacting the dead, transfiguration has its limits. It's hard to find anyone who does it, and in the cases you've seen, you either get celebrities or squealing dolphins imparting their fishy New Age philosophy. What's worse, Richard says it isn't true.
With transfiguration mediums, the claim is that somehow they can mutate their face and they can become the spirits that they claim to be. Other people are sitting there, people who really want to believe the claim, they're looking at that slightly odd expression and going, oh yeah, you know, it really looks like my deceased friend or my dead grandmother or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's simply wishful thinking.
Coming up next, Ouija boards and dyslexic spirits in the dead of night. Elvis Presley and a lot of crystal balls in Chiswick. And fun and games in the bedroom with your third eye. Chiswick, West London. A typical leafy road, you might think, an ordinary row of shops. But in one of these shops is a New Age clairvoyant who claims to be able to contact the dead using crystals. This form of contacting the dead is known as scrying. It's a very ancient practice, which involves peering not only into crystals, but also other reflective surfaces, such as mirrors. Rosa de Rivière believes that when she passes her hands over the crystal balls, the energy or spirits of dead people make the balls vibrate, causing her crown chakra to open. The spirit then enters into her third eye.
This is an incredibly powerful piece. I mean, as I'm touching it, or even just on the surface of the aura of this crystal, I'm picking up an extremely powerful energy. In fact, I have to probably be quite careful that I don't pick up too much, as I can feel that my third eye is beginning to open quite strongly now. The most memorable spirits that I've contacted have been my ancestors. My grandmother, both my grandparents, and I also have a brother that died quite tragically. We're working with very, very powerful entities, energies, and I think that it has to be done with integrity, and it has to be done in a very practical and grounded way.
The practice of scrying began in ancient Egypt and has lived on in the Arabic world. The object used, known as a speculum, can vary. Nostradamus, probably the most famous scryer, used a bowl of water. Rosa is using the most well-known kind of speculum, a crystal ball.
I can feel a connection coming through my third eye, and I can feel my crown chakra opening. I'm in a rugged area. It's very dry, it feels like a desert. The energy that I'm picking up on is very male, it's a very male energy. Now I can feel a lot of energy coming through my palms. There's almost like a magnetic field coming through to my palms. I want to go back in time here, perhaps to the 60s, or perhaps even the 50s. And again, I'm picking up on a male spirit. He was very famous in his time, and he died before his time. I'm picking up music, and I'm picking up very, very dark hair, jet black hair. I'm not 100%, but it feels like Elvis.
But meddling with your third eye can be perilous. as Rosa discovered one night in the bedroom of her new flat.
I was aware when I moved in that somebody had actually died in the bedroom. One particular evening, I'd gone to bed, I lay there, and then very, very suddenly I felt this kind of swaying, this movement, and I thought I was dreaming. Then I felt the bed starting to move, and then I felt my body being levitated off the bed. I didn't know what to do, so I assumed that there was a spirit or an entity that had entered into the room, and I presumed it could have been the lady that had died. And then as it was over, or it came to an end, it all started to sort of come back down to earth again. So I jumped off and ran next door, and the whole room had illuminated into the colour bright orange, which was like the colour of a sunset. That was basically, I would say, the most amazing experience I've ever had to date.
The notion of scrying, or looking at a crystal ball or into a bowl of water and seeing images there, is a very, very old one. I think what we're looking at here are highly imaginative people. People who can look at the patches of colour that you get inside a glass ball, for example, and can form it into an image. And of course, if you believe in the spirit world, if you believe you have mediumistic gifts, then you might interpret that image as coming from the dead.
Kevin is a white witch from Hastings who contacts the dead using an Ouija board. This evening, he's heading off into the woods with his high priestess Diana. And he has also invited an 18-year-old girl called Kat and her boyfriend. Kevin strips off and dons his sacred robe, which he made from an old curtain.
Our robes basically mean, it's like putting on training shoes, jogging bottoms, that sort of thing. If you're sporty, put on a swimming costume, you go swimming. Putting on our robes makes us feel kind of spiritual.
This is Kat's first time with a Ouija. She's excited and nervous.
I've always sort of been interested in this sort of thing, but I haven't actually done a Ouija board before. I've just come along tonight with Kevin and everything to see if anything's going to happen. Come down here before with Kevin. I've done some sort of ritual sort of stuff in this place with the fire and everything once or twice.
I'm Kevin's high priestess. My grandmother used to read tea leaves, and my great-grandmother was known as the village wise woman, which is an old-fashioned term for a witch.
The magic circle that we'll actually cast later, well, very shortly actually, is for protection, to keep our energies in and keep any evil influences out. May this be my spirit going upwards and outwards on this sacred day. So may it be done. People do have more to worry about from the living than they do the dead. So these are safe woods, and we're just going to cast a nice little circle and then call up whoever wants to come. And if it's a demon, we leg it.
May no evil enter this place on this sacred night. So may it be done!
Oh, shit. Spooky. Spooky. On this sacred night, I do summon Canonis and Aradia, the god and the goddess of old. May this circle be bound about us in perfect trust and joy. On the sacred night, I place this board to contact those who need to contact us.
Nobody knows the origins of Ouija, but it started to be used widely by mediums only after it was marketed as a board game. Spirits communicate by influencing the movement of the sacred stone or planchette, spelling out messages or pointing to the words yes or no.
Or is it anybody that wishes to come through to talk to us?
Slowly, the sacred stone moves towards the word no.
Well, that's quite frank, wouldn't it?
Kevin then decides to make a direct attempt to contact William the Conqueror. Slowly, the sacred stone drifts across the board, moving in a determined way from letter to letter. Unfortunately, it spells out Dag Helix Aquec. But Kevin is not discouraged.
It's possible to tap into people, bring them back. Well, actually, in life and death, you actually do get dyslexic spirits.
Lots of people have played with Ouija boards, and often the planchette actually does spell out a message of some sort. But is that evidence of spirit communication? I just don't think so. Why does the stone move in a Ouija board? Because without realizing it, people are pushing it. This is nothing to do with spirit communication.
I am the master of your so-called flying saucers.
Of course, in summoning up the dark side, there's always a risk that something nasty and not necessarily human will come along and take possession of you, as happened in Kensington to Mrs. Edith Cardew in 1966.
The man who complained and had the bruises on the back of his head was not attacked. It was the way of entry, by the osmotic entry through the cerebellum. Now, are you going to believe that?
In the earliest days of radio, even eminent scientists like Marconi and Edison believed that electric or radio signals might prove an effective means of contacting the dead. Most people no longer believe that technology can bridge the Great Divide, but there are those who still live in hope.
My eldest son died in 1992, and it was an immense shock, as you can imagine. And I just couldn't believe that somebody so vibrant, so full of life, so worldly, so everything could just not be anymore. So I determined to find him.
Judy Chisholm, a journalist living in South London, believes that it is possible to capture the voices of the dead.
It's a method of picking up spirit voices by recording, digital recording in my case. When I got the digital recorder, I found that I was just picking up just unending spirit voices. Usually people just get a couple of voices or a couple of phrases, but I'm able to have conversations. And I know when the people are speaking to me. Well, first of all, I recognize their voices. And secondly, the recorder's got a little red, tiny little red light on it, and it flickers when spirit is speaking, and it's still when I speak or you speak or anyone here, or a dog barks or anything happens here on this earthly plane. It's still. So that's how I know that they're speaking. Right, I'm switching it on now. Now, they're already speaking. The little red light is flickering. Hello, friends. I'm just going to quickly say the date, 7th of July 2003. Right, I'm putting you in the tin now. Taking the lid off, putting you in the tin, and I'm putting the lid on. Now, I'm going to leave that, and whatever comes on there, you know, nothing to do with any of us, and I'm going to actually go out of the room.
Judith has placed her recorder in a tin to prevent extraneous noises from interfering with the voices of spirits. 5 minutes later, she checks the recording.
Well, I mean, I don't think you could miss hearing that voice say, "It's Hallam." Could you? Right at the beginning? Maybe you couldn't pick it up, but he said, "It's Hallam," very loudly. And there's lots of different other voices there, some of them saying thank you for speaking and etc. But that's what I can hear at this moment. As I say, I have to play it back and listen through headphones and what have you.
With electronic voice phenomena, people are listening to noise, to static. But they really want to believe there's some kind of message in there. The spirits are talking to them. And so they're listening out for any hint of a message. And as humans, when we look at something ambiguous, but we really want to hear or see something in there, we're very good at hearing patterns, at hearing fragments of words, convincing ourselves that yes, indeed, the dead are speaking to us, when in fact, we're just projecting our own wishful thinking onto ambiguous patterns. We're not hearing the voices of the dead. We're hearing static, we're hearing noise, and we're reading meaning into that. We're hearing what we want to hear.
There is a long tradition of attempting to capture supernatural occurrences on tape. In 1972, Maurice Gross from Ponder's End claims to have recorded a poltergeist in this disturbing nationwide report.
Knock. 1 for no and 2 for yes. Did you used to live in this house? You did. Now, why are you here? Are you unhappy? You're not unhappy. But why are you here? Is it because you want to give us a special message? No. Are you having a game with me? Oh, right.
Oh, crumbs.
As I asked the question, are you having a game with me, it threw the cardboard box and the pillow right at my face.
Still to come, Louis XIV, Winston Churchill, and Adolf Hitler pays a quick visit. Can the witch from Wigan bring back Granny? And Hazel, the holistic healer, meets a sticky end in a former life as the Queen of Sheba. Sylvia Burns is a medium from Chelmsford in Essex and contacts the dead by means of seances. The word seance comes from the French for sitting. The dead communicate in various forms, such as knocking on the table or by making strange smells, in this case by making the table move.
Is there someone here for John? And the answer is yes. And we ask again if it's your father. Yeah. Again, yes. So we feel John's father is here.
I ask your dad, is Mum with you?
And again, yes.
Can I ask Daddy, is life in the spirit world is as beautiful as we think it is?
And again, yes.
But the spirits who animate Sylvia's tables are not limited to the loved ones of those present. Like many mediums, she is frequently visited by dead celebrities, in Sylvia's case by some of the great figures of European history.
I felt him beside me, and I disappointed him at first because I just thought it was a woman named Winnie, because he didn't say Winston, he called himself Winnie. And then I realised it was the man. We had a man come through who had been beheaded, and it was Louis XIV who had actually come through to us to explain about being beheaded.
Louis XIV's description of his own beheading is particularly perplexing, given that he died of gangrene, though his descendant Louis XVI was indeed beheaded and may have been the monarch visiting Sylvia. Sylvia insists that the choice of table is all important. It is vital, for example, that the table should be small enough for the energies to move it. For the spirits of dead people apparently find it difficult to move big ones.
I would love to see it lift right off the ground, but I don't think we're going to do that today because we haven't got enough energies here.
Then, incredibly, the table turns to a member of the television crew.
Can I just talk to our cameraman for a minute? All right. Okay. I feel that there's what we're trying to get through in this. There is a young man connected with you that's in the spirit world. Somebody that you would have known. He seems to be in leathers. I can see quite short, dark hair. Right, I've got the name of Colin.
Our cameraman Mark Bond denied knowing anyone in leathers called Colin. However, despite Mark's protestations, leather-clad Colin was strangely drawn to him.
I think actually it's following our cameraman round. So I feel that I'm afraid we have to get up. Is that okay? All right. Come on then, you can go to him if you like. This is what happens sometimes in our seances, when the table will move and we have to go with it.
Colin spent some time pursuing Mark around the room before Sylvia finally told him to stop it.
Table tipping was extremely popular during Victorian times, and people sit around, they place their fingers lightly on the table, it starts to tip, it starts to move. What's happening? Well, again, it's psychological. People simply don't realise it, but they're pushing the table. And when everybody starts to push in the same direction, lo and behold, it starts to move. And it's a great phenomena. It's great fun, but it's not communication with the dead.
But it's not just occasional tables which people imagine move around under their own steam, as we discover when we return to the poltergeist in Ponder's End.
We got this knocking. And then, just see a Lego. I witnessed a box of Lego underneath a chair, but I walked into the room. As I walked into the room, the Lego began to fly. But where it was coming from, I don't know. One piece hit me on the arm, and...
Did it hurt?
Oh, it brought a lump up. It caught me on the elbow, and it brought a lump up. And as I
one
say,
tiny little piece?
One tiny little piece of Lego. Now, it's not much bigger than a 3/4 inch. But it caught me on the elbow, and as I say, it brought a lump up.
Tapes can, of course, be faked. But in this one, recorded in a bedroom after the family had gone to bed, the reactions of the Hodgson children to some very strange occurrences seem totally genuine.
All the lights got out. Oh.
It's thrown the lamp right way across the room and pulled it out of the socket.
The light plug was pulled from the socket 3 times after that.
We was all just standing in the kitchen, all of us together. And then all of a sudden a pool of water come from nowhere in the middle of the floor in the kitchen. And then we heard the toilet chain pull. And there was no one at all out in the toilet. We was all in the kitchen. And the door opened in the toilet, then the chain went, and as we walked out there, the toilet brush came from the container, and the brush just come up and settled on top of the toilet.
Then, after a period of watching and waiting, something even stranger happened.
The slipper was thrown across the room, it hit the door as I was holding the door. The white slipper hit the door as I was holding the door.
He hit me on the leg.
Alfe and Joan Whittington are members of a small coven of witches based in Wigan. They try to contact dead relatives and friends using pagan witchcraft rituals performed around the time of Halloween.
The veil between life as we know it here and the death realm is thinner at Halloween than any other time in the year. So consequently, it's the best time if you want to invite your loved ones who have passed over to come back and celebrate that rite with you. It's the right time to do it.
Open now, I pray thee, for tonight we would make communion with those of our loved ones who have gone before. I call especially the lady this young man wishes to speak to.
Joan has offered to contact the grandmother of Alex, a member of the television crew. Alfe, Joan and Alex gaze into the cauldron, and in the smoke Joan begins to make out signs of Alex's grandmother.
I'm getting a very heavy mantelpiece over the fireplace.
She didn't have an open fireplace?
No.
She didn't have a mantel?
Would it be a shelf then? Would it be where the fireplace would have been? Is there a shelf in that vicinity? It seems to be quite thick. No, it's not. It's a cabinet with glass shelves in. I'm getting a little dog in the picture as well. Would this be her dog or would it be yours? Something little sort of like a Yorkshire Terrier type. very small dog. Shaggy hair, like a Yorkshire Terrier or a Scottish Terrier.
I can't remember her having a dog.
No. You should be able, but...
Nor could Alex remember any sepia photograph of a man in uniform, nor indeed his grandmother giving him a special present.
People carry out all sorts of rituals that are designed to try and bring some sort of spirit communication into the world. Unfortunately, those messages are often extremely general. They're not the sorts of things that would constitute any kind of test that you are actually in contact with the dead. So although they might have strong beliefs that rituals work, that they're effective, there's really no evidence that's actually the case.
Despite the apparent failure of this attempt to contact the dead, pagan witchcraft is very ancient, and we like Alfe and Joan very much, which is why they're at number 4. An ordinary day in an ordinary street at the seaside in sunny Southsea. But for Hazel Oatey, it's a special day, for she's come to be transported back to a previous existence by astrologer David Wells.
I'm here to explore past lives today with David, having had several experiences with other therapists, looking at lives in ancient Egypt, in Atlantis, in Italy, all over the place, and I'm looking forward to see where we get with it today.
Hi.
Hi, David.
Hazel, yeah, come in.
Nice to meet you.
These days, Hazel works as an alternative therapist in Balham, but in her previous lives, she's been a gladiator and an Egyptian princess.
Take a deep breath in for me, Hazel. Let's start the journey then. Imagine for me that you're in a forest, beautiful green forest. Go along the path that seems to open up ahead of you. You see a round library filled with books. We're only interested in one book. Tell me what you see.
I can see lots of pages, and they're all full of interesting things, and I've gone forward to another particular page where I'm a queen.
What's the name of the queen?
Queen Sheba. I had a beautiful headdress, and I became very involved in what was going on.
Was that wrong to be involved?
No, it was what I did. I became involved in the crueler side of things that were going on.
Apart from having a nice hat, Hazel's a bit fuzzy on the details of her life as the Queen of Sheba. She died a violent death and there was a battle, but she can't remember between whom. And she was in love with a man.
In past life regression, people come up with all sorts of stories. They say, oh, I lived 100 years ago, and this is what happened to me. The problem is those stories very, very rarely match historical records. We're not looking at communication with the dead here. We're looking at storytelling.
Another curious thing about past life regression is that so many people remember being the same historical characters.
From the top, Boadicea, obviously, King Arthur, Richard the Lionheart, Queen Elizabeth I. Let me see, I think I've had a disciple as well, one disciple, and I think probably the latest one I had a young Prussian officer in the German army who actually died in the bunker at the same time as Hitler. So it wasn't Hitler, but it was someone associated with him. I'm fully aware that there could be 12 Cleopatras or 45 Boadiceas. I'm fully aware of that. But we think with our earthly heads, we really do think with our earthly heads. You have to think outside of that.
Sadly, not everyone is as skilled as Hazel and David at thinking outside their earthly heads. And so our search continues. Will we ever succeed in contacting the dead? Stay tuned for the final countdown and to discover the only method Professor Wiseman thinks has any chance of working. Notting Hill, a fashionable part of London for a fashionable means of reaching over to the other side. Here we find the Golden Light Centre, where people come for a taste of the mysterious Orient to learn spiritual healing, intuition and personal development. Their guide is Lynn McDermott, whose main interest is contacting what she calls discarnate entities from other realms. Lynn uses trance channeling to become possessed by the spirit of a dead guru, who then offers advice to those present. Lynn sinks into a semi-hypnotic state. Her lips part very slightly, and she makes a gentle gurgling noise as if there were something tickling the back of her throat. She is then entered by a Chinaman.
My name is Peng Sailing, and I want to share with you a message from the spirit world to you all.
Rather like an astrology column in a magazine, the dead guru's advice is quite vague, but it seems to strike a chord with at least some of those present.
You will use your spirituality, what you will learn, and very soon you shall learn, to help you make the right decisions as to where to go and what to do. Do you understand this? Yeah.
But with trance channeling, as so many things, the Americans do it bigger. This trance channeler has been entered by the spirit of a wise ancient guru called Mafu.
Beloved masters, good morning. Good morning, Edgar.
Good morning, Mafu.
How do you indeed?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yes.
What have you been up to?
A lot.
Yeah?
Non-stop.
Yeah. Pleased to be in your homeland?
Very pleased.
Like some spectral agony aunt, the ancient Mafu doles out sex advice to young couples.
This is not your soulmate. And you've taken her from the arms of hers. And that's all right. I mean, it doesn't really matter, you know. She's been looking for a way out for a while. You're a good ticket. Because here you are, a sexy guy.
Sadly, there doesn't seem to be any way of verifying whether trance channelers are in fact possessed by ancient gurus or whether they're just pretending.
In trance channeling, the medium allegedly goes into some altered state of consciousness and brings forth spirit communication. But this isn't any evidence of spirit possession, it's simply evidence of an altered state of consciousness.
So which morbid method of spectral communication is top in our list? At number 10, remember, comes voodoo and those heaving mambo priestesses. At number 9 is transfiguration and a quick visit from Abraham Lincoln. At 8 comes scrying with Elvis Presley dropping by. At 7, Ouija and a dyslexic spectre in the woods. At 6 comes electronic voice phenomena and some phantom radio hams. At 5, seances and Mark's leather-clad friend Colin. Coming in at number 4 are the White Witches from Wigan. At 3 is past life regression and the Queen of Sheba from Balaam. At number 2, there's trance channeling and the gurgling gurus from beyond the grave. But at number 1, a brand new state-of-the-art 21st century entry from St. Louis, USA.
Hello, my name is Paul Kinsella. I'm webmaster for AfterlifeTelegrams.com. And welcome to my home in New Athens, Illinois. The concept is that a customer can come to our website, and for $5 per word with a 5-word minimum, they can write a telegram to someone who's passed away, someone who's dead, and they then email it to us. We then give that telegram to a terminal person that we have on staff, He memorizes the telegram word for word, and then upon his death, he will do everything he can in his power to deliver that telegram.
Paul called me and talked to me about it. I had to think about it for a while.
Paul's celestial postman is his friend Lance, who is dying from cancer.
No, I believe in an afterlife. There has to be something to it. Too many cultures believe in it. Too many religions believe in it.
Paul promises that if Lance doesn't die within a year of a telegram being ordered, customers get their money back. Nevertheless, business has been slow. So far, Lance has only 2 telegrams to memorize, one to Adolf Hitler and another to Paul's own dear departed loved ones. Sadly, as we have discovered, asking terminally ill people to remember messages has its drawbacks.
To Retta Kinsella, Tabitha and I are going to have a baby. No. Your sister, see, it's, when I want to remember it, I have a hard time. The medication that I'm on, sometimes it's hard to keep my thoughts straight.
So why is afterlife telegrams top of our list? Well, scientists dismiss the claims by mediums that they have the power to contact the dead, but afterlife telegrams is different because former postman Paul Kinsella makes no such claim.
As far as we all know, there could be no afterlife. It could also be a kind of afterlife where it'd be impossible to actually deliver a message. It could be very chaotic. It also could be that everyone is just reincarnated almost right away, and the messenger would miss the person. So I try to make it clear as possible on the website that we don't have a guarantee. We don't guarantee delivery, we guarantee delivery attempts.
And so with hope and a prayer, our cameraman Case scribbles a brief note to his father for Lance to deliver when his time comes, if he remembers.
Yeah, we are all thinking of you and love you very much. Your son, Case, and family.
Okay. Let's see if I can get that to him.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
But a final word of caution before viewers decide to dabble with the dark side. It's one thing getting the dead to talk. It's another shutting them up.
Well, now, will you please go away? Because I think you've had enough of your jokes. You won't go away. But I would like you to go away, and go away because I think you've been upsetting this family long enough, and it's time you went away. You understand me? Please go away. Yes, you must go away. It's absolutely... You must go away. Well, you must. I'm sorry, but you must stop annoying this family. You've had enough, you've had it.